they'll reach out,
Yeah.
they'll apply, but then they'll say things like, hey, they'll pull up random things from my website. Like we have a page on the website for like, it's called Second Opinion. You know how like orthos and physicians have like a second opinion, page on their website. Some of them do. So we have that on our website. They'll mention that, or they'll mention like certain like Google reviews. Like they'll actually look at the Google reviews that patients have written. And they might say, like, oh, this is interesting. Or, oh, wow, you guys also go to hotel rooms in the city for tourists and other people that are visiting the city. Like, that's really cool. That's kind of, different and interesting. Those are the signals, Tony, that I was kind of talking about earlier. Those are the things that a candidate is showing their interest. They're showing that they're kind of, curious, that they're almost.
Let's talk about your post. Let's talk about how you screen and how you avoid, therapists. And here's the context for anybody listening. So I shared Dave's post about up to 120,000 a year, 4 to 6 patient visits a day, I think it was. And I was like, how do you avoid those therapists who, and it could be the best of intentions, they think they're amazing therapists. They think that they're killing it. They think that they're working so hard. They think that they're sacrificing so much. But then once you get them in the organization, you realize they're just lazy and deluded. They have no idea. They're not a good therapist. They're not fun to be around, and they're not working hard. But when you put a post like on the screen, NYC PTOT up to 120,000 salary compensation, treat 4 to 6 a day, house calls, coaching, mentorship, that is going to attract everybody. How do you find the ones that really resonate with your culture?
Yeah, I mean, great question. First of all, yes, that is the point of these posts, is to have a bigger top of the funnel to attract more potential candidates. We were in the car yesterday going from this Blue Ridge, Georgia cabin over to Tennessee. For a batting cage, actually, the D-back company. So we hit there. And on the drive, I pulled out my Google Drive, my playbook that we have for concierge pain relief for my practice. And I added a Google sheet, a file just for this exactly. And with your post, I said, how do we, and I need to get, the reason I have the playbook, by the way, is to get things out of my head and get it documented somewhere electronically so that it'll help with onboarding with other new employees and growth and all that type of stuff. So I added this in the recruiting and hiring folder of the playbook. And how do we, I wrote a bunch of things down, but really like the most concise thing is that it's all about signaling. What I mean by signaling is we have a candidate, they apply through our website, they respond to an Indeed ad, maybe they come through my network like this, like someone sees it on Facebook or LinkedIn, they private message me on LinkedIn or Facebook. We start a conversation. I don't know if I have a great answer other than it's signaling, meaning as someone goes through the whole process, right? So they inquire, they're interested. I'll send them, or someone on my team, like, will send them the FAQ document. It's like 6 pages or something. It answers like a lot of the normal questions of like, do we need to bring a treatment table? Like, what about CEUs and like documentation? It answers every single question around potentially working with us. So one thing is like, they read that, then we have a 15-minute phone screen, then we have a 60-minute Zoom interview, then we would have an in-person interview where they evaluate me and I'm the fake patient. So in this whole process, it's signaling, meaning how timely they respond to things, how do they conduct themselves on the phone, what are the things that they're interested about, like the questions that they ask. I don't know particularly how, I'm sure I have it somewhere in my head. And this right now, as we're talking about this, like I'm literally, it's kind of still processing, like, how do I know if someone's lazy or not? I think there's some amount of motivation. I think that a therapist would want to run around New York City and see 4 to 6 patients a day compared to being in an outpatient office where they see, 10 to 20 or whatever, 25 or, at the high end. That is easier. So already my job listing or my job specs can be more challenging, and it takes more effort to do that. Also, with my therapist, when they schedule follow-up visits with patients and clients, they're doing a lot of the scheduling themselves compared to an outpatient office where the admin, the front desk person has their open panel and they're just like, oh, Tony's open on Wednesday at 9:30 and he's got an opening at, 2:15 and 5:30. Which one works better for you? So it has to attract, and it doesn't always, but these job posts, it has to try to attract someone that understands there's going to be some extra work. And I used to think that this was easier. I used to think that my offering, my job was easier than going to an outpatient office and treating 15, 20 patients a day. Sturdy McKay, my business mentor, my coach, my business partner, he made me realize that this is actually more work and more challenging. So I was like, it took probably a year for me to actually understand that. And Tony, I don't know if I'm even giving you a great response right now. Like, how do I know if someone's lazy or not? They have to follow up efficiently, quickly. They have to exude, interest and emotion. And they're showing, here's why I'm in. Oh, another thing I wrote in this document is I need to find like a specialist, a particular specialist health, physical therapist, as opposed to just like a generalist who is like whatever job, like random, like I'll take any job that's on Indeed. Obviously that therapist is not for me. So we can get into it.
Let me ask you this, and Jimmy, I'm sure you probably have something to chime in. The process that you're going through, I love, and ChatGPT is like the perfect scenario where last night I used ChatGPT to create a new patient admission procedure that was formally documented in a step-by-step method for my Medicare billing course. So for this, like I would be talking to ChatGPT just like another person saying, help me understand the process of how I weed out the individuals who are applying for a job that are not appropriate. What are the questions I'm asking? What are the things I'm thinking about? And ChatGPT will give you the finalized document that's actually the step-by-step process that creates the structure for your business, the SOP, procedure, policy, whatever you want to call it. My follow-up question is, when you identify through, let's say, the 15-minute interview, you're like, oh, this is not going to work. This is not the person for me. They might be a great person. They might be well-intentioned, but this is not the person that I want on my team. Do you cut it off right there? Do you say, stop, let me stop you. This isn't going to work. Do you let them, finish the 15 minutes and then tell them something? Do you email them? Like, how do you break up before you ever start the relationship?
Yeah. So on that 15-minute phone screen, I'm really asking like 3 quick questions. And then at the end of that, it's really like, hey, Tony, I liked those replies. I liked your answers to those questions. While we're here on this phone, like, let's pick a time. Otherwise, like if we can't, and if I got to run, like I'll send you a link and you can, pick a time on my calendar. But otherwise, let's schedule that 60-minute Zoom interview, because the 15-minute phone call is just to ensure that it makes sense for both of us to invest in the next step, which is that 60-minute Zoom interview.
But what if you realize at that 15-minute call, it's not making sense?
It doesn't happen too often, because I think in this whole process, again, Sturdy helped me with this, which is candidates are always on their very best behavior, best behavior ever at the very, very, very beginning of the entire process. So I feel like you can't always, I can't always know how great someone is. Now, of course, in the first 7-8 minutes, right? I will definitely say, I'll nicely say like, hey, it's not you, it's me. It's like, based off of this or that, like, I feel like this doesn't match the ideal candidate that we're looking for. And I know you're gonna rock and roll at some other role or job or whatever. And there's tons of jobs out there. So you're gonna be fine. You're gonna do great. I don't think, based off of the first thing, 1 or 2 things you said or whatever, or a question, I don't know, like a question, like something that I'm trying to think what would disqualify someone, like, oh, you don't have like private car service drive me around to all your home, home visits. Like, I don't know, like that's something that hasn't happened, but something that would disqualify someone, I would absolutely want to protect my time and say, hey, I know we said this is a 15-minute phone screen. Sometimes it goes longer, and yes, sometimes it can be shorter, and I'll cut it off.
Jimmy, what do you think? When it's not going to work, the chemistry is not there. I think I know within the first couple minutes. I hear it in the tone of voice. I see it in their body language and their mannerisms. Like,
Dave cares too much about breaking another person's heart in this situation.
No, I don't. No.
Then cut it off, right? Then be like, hey, listen.
I said I do. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I said, because I've done this for a while now, and a lot of folks exude what we're looking for on the first or second call, and sometimes either I'm not picking up on some of those signals, or I'm letting too many of them, pass through, and I'm not filtering them out early enough. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I need to continue to get better at that. And also, every candidate is going to be on their very, very best behavior on the very beginning of any engagement with any recruiter, business owner, practice owner, whoever.
So I like this ad. I think it's very different. Number one, it puts money in it. And that, like, all you're already like 90% ahead of most job postings, right? By putting an actual salary in there, which in 2024 is mind numbing because it just wastes time on everybody's end if this is going to be a deal breaker. So I don't know the answer, but I do know a lot of questions. So can you reverse engineer the people that you have found who have been great? Are they the kind, like, how about they help you design the ad? Because for me, you said you thought this would be like the easiest job. Because to Dave, this is easy. But from what I'm hearing, to a lot of people, this is the opposite of easy. This is choose your hard. For me, going to work at a radio station and riffing for 5 hours every single day, super easy. Any of my friends who are far more intelligent, that was really hard. So it's like you choose your hard, right? So like that's one of those phrases that comes to mind. Choose your hard. So, and I don't want to tell the same story over and over again because I think I did, but I used to look for weekend radio DJs. Essentially, like, you're going to work all the fill-in holidays. You're going to work Christmas and New Year's and weekends. Our ad was worst job ever. Minimum wage, nights, weekends, holidays, no perks, no job security, called in a minute's notice. And I weeded out. But the job is you get to be on the air at this radio station. And we ran that ad as a campaign. So if I got 15 candidates, great, because I only had to hire one. I wound up hiring more because of the sorting process. So I've done not on this graphic, but in the caption description of other posts, I have written things like demanding yet motivated clientele. Because some of our clientele, like, even if you say, hey, I'll be there around 9:30, and some of these like old, retired, semi-retired M&A lawyers and investment bankers, whatever, like, it's like 9:32 and the client or their spouse are, texting or calling the therapist like, hey, are you still coming today? And it's like, yeah, I'm 2 blocks away. Or like, it's just crazy, right? So like, I have put some of that in there. I have put some of that in the job descriptions or in the social media. I'd make it the campaign. I mean, that's what we did. Like, worst job ever, like minimum wage. Like, I only want the people who really super want this. Now, I'm not saying you have to say like minimum wage, but it's like toughest job in New York, like toughest physical therapy job in New York. Like, why do you do Tough Mudder? Like, why do you do Iron Man? Like, you do it for the t-shirt, right? Like, you do it for the journey. Like, that's the person you're looking for. You're looking for the person who does it for the journey, right? And then you're going to reward them with the medal and the t-shirt at the end. Like, you're going to compensate them, but you're looking for the people who are like, I'd do this if it were free. I don't know.
Now,
I have to think about it.
I like that strategy for patient acquisition. I want to tell patients, this is a horrible experience. You are going to feel terrible. We're going to drag you through the mud. Like, we're going to do all of these things. Because I want that patient coming to me who's not expecting to lay on a table and have me rub their back. Yeah. I want that patient who's looking for a challenge, who wants it to be hard. From a talent acquisition perspective, I do find too, going back and being like, who is the people? What is the person that's been successful in my organization already? What is their personality? What were the things that stood out to me? Like, how can I convey that to future prospects? One of the stories I always share is I was taking somebody around. It was the granddaughter of a patient who just wanted to learn a little bit about physical therapy. And I noticed while I was showing her around the clinic, she picked up a step stool and moved it to the side. She wasn't applying for a job. She was just asking for information about what we do. Without me telling her, she picked up a step stool, moved it to the side, and I said, I want to hire you. I want you to come work for us. Like, that was the thing, because she didn't take verbal cues. She identified a potential risk. She took care of it without being told, and she wasn't getting paid to do it. You know, like, those are the characteristics and the traits. When I see somebody, a waitress or a cashier at a, retail outlet, when I see them do something that's beyond just ringing people up, and it's using analytic mindset to solve a problem, instantly, like, hey, do you ever think about getting into healthcare or doing something? Here's my card. This is my business. We're always looking for people like you who identify problems and you handle them without being told to handle them. And I try to convey that in the job description of, these are the people that have been successful. What were you going to say, Jimmy?
How do you do that on an interview? Because how do you do that? How Dave's doing that? Like, how do you set that up?
So for me, it's usually pre-interview. This is how, back in the day, how I used to identify candidates. Like, I wouldn't even waste time half the time. I wouldn't waste time posting jobs, because these are going to be people that I don't want to go through the screening process. So just when I'm out to dinner with my wife, buying something at Office Depot, out with my kids, I see somebody at the trampoline park, that one person who sees trash on the floor and picks it up, whether they're an employee or an attendee, that's the person that I want to hire for my business. And that's where I always used to get my best employees.
So some of the best therapists and candidates that we've had over the years are ones that do some of those things electronically or digitally, Tony, and they do it, like you said, kind of in the pre-interview, like before we're speaking. They'll reach out, they'll apply, but then they'll say things like, hey, they'll pull up random things from my website. Like, we have a page on the website for, like, it's called Second Opinion. You know how, like, orthos and physicians have, like, a second opinion, page on their website. Some of them do. So we have that on our website. They'll mention that, or they'll mention, like, certain, like, Google reviews. Like, they'll actually look at the Google reviews that patients have written, and they might say, like, oh, this is interesting, or, oh, wow, you guys also go to hotel rooms in the city for tourists and other people that are visiting the city. Like, that's really cool. That's kind of different and interesting. Those are the signals, Tony, that I was kind of talking about earlier. Those are the things that a candidate is showing their interest. They're showing that they're kind of, curious, that they're kind of, like, trying, or they are exuding, like, here's how I'm different, like, here. And maybe they are not even realizing it. Like, these are the things I would want to do, which is, like, if I'm applying to Tony, or, to work for PT Pintcast or whatever, I want to mention some unique thing. I want to stand out, right? So candidates should want to stand out. And those are the things that we see with candidates over the years. The ones that are the best ideal fit for us and stay the longest, and, love our patients and clients, and they understand the job roles and responsibilities and everything, they typically will say some of those things up front. They'll say, oh, I saw on your LinkedIn, what's this field maker group thing? And, oh, you guys are looking to acquire practices. So, like, that's kind of interesting. And some of the therapists are like, maybe they're like, can I, learn more about that? Maybe I can, work with concierge pain relief and then learn a little bit more about the M&A stuff. Those are the things, those qualifiers, or those areas of interest that we see with candidates. And I don't really think about the laziness versus, like you're saying, like, how do you know if an employee or a candidate is lazy or not? I feel like cognitively, like, they're already showing that they're not lazy, because they're pulling out these random things on your website or Google reviews or whatever, and then they're mentioning it in the process or upfront when they're applying.
Yeah. There are some questions up here if you want to get to them, Jimmy.
Which one?
David said, in terms of attracting new therapists to join your clinic, do you think it's attractive to offer paid APTA membership?
I've never had a candidate ask about it, so I don't know how important it is to most candidates, although, it's not like we're getting a ton of candidates compared to, like, Fox Rehab or, some gigantic clinic or practice. If candidates ask about it, and again, if they're the ideal fit, all that, like, sure, like, whatever the price is, like, we can add it to the benefits, but that's not typically, like, the main ask or, request for candidates on the front end.
Yeah, usually for me, when I'm putting together an employment package, I basically just say, what's the most important thing to you? Do you want more time off? Do you want benefits? Do you want education? Like, I don't care. I've got a bucket of money that I'm going to spend. How do you want me to spend it? And from that, then we can talk about what your priorities are, what's most important to you. And if the absolute raw dollar amount is the most important thing, we can get there. But like anything, it's got to be an objective decision. It's like, hey, I want to make 120,000. Okay, this is what you need to do to make it. And if we can't do it, we can't do it. Go work for Dave.
Yeah, was that Tony? Was that on Facebook or LinkedIn? Where was that question? Because I don't see it here on the live comments.
I don't know. So I'm looking. It's on YouTube. David's on YouTube. Will Boyd's on YouTube. John Mitchell. And then I see Steven from LinkedIn. And then there's a physiotherapist saying, "What's the most effective way to study biomechanics?"
We'll put the link to my Amazon affiliate link for the biomechanics book comments below.
That's how we study it.
No, I mean, how do you study biomechanics? I don't know. What do you learn best? Is it a book? Is it videos? Is it a course? Is it in person? I would say go to YouTube and search in biomechanics.
That's actually what I was going to say. YouTube. Yeah, there's so much out
You're on YouTube. That's the way to do it.
So did we cover
anything else on this topic?
Yeah, maybe. Did we cover this, Steven's comment right here?
No.
Go ahead.
So Steven Rapicelli down in the Delaware area. Steven, we've never spoken, but I know your name, and he's got a couple of different clinics. And I mentioned him here on the show before because he was the one that also popped up the separate brick and mortar stretchplex, like the stretch places that are, remember that? So he's a fascinating entrepreneur, and I would love to connect with him. So Steven put in quotes, "How do I know if someone is lazy or not?" This is great to hear him, I guess he's talking about me, thinking out loud to see his thought process. And he agrees, very difficult to assess behavior and character traits. Bravo. So yeah, I think it's really challenging to assess this also in just 15 minutes on a phone call. Like then it's really the next step is the Zoom video interview, right? Like we can kind of see someone's like body language. They're, are they kind of shrunken in? Are they, taking up space with like are they confident with how they're communicating and all that? But yeah, I think in the first call, it's really challenging.
The other thing that came up was this reminds me of the first time I ever learned about what the golden mile was. You guys know what the golden mile is, right? Like Amazon is very efficient at getting you to their website, SEO machine, monster, very efficient at having everything, very efficient at checkout, very efficient at logistics. I'm sure there's a robot now packaging my order from yesterday and getting it over to a cart, which it gets it to the right truck, which gets it to the right sorting facility. It's that last mile, because there's an Amazon facility like 3 miles up the street from me. I'm sure it gets there, but from there, it's got to go to 100 or 1,000 different locations in my community tomorrow. And that's the problem. So this is where Dave's ad is like Amazon. It's like, dude, like you can put some dollars behind that and you could hit 1,000 people, the right people tomorrow. But it's that, well, how do you sort from 1,000 to 250 to 115-minute conversations to 6 1-hour Zoom calls to pick the one? This is the golden mile problem. This is why like recruiting and staffing is a major issue. You're not looking for people, you're looking for the right people. And that's hard.
Yeah, I remember when we used to post on Indeed for an administrative assistant, and we'd get like 300 or 400 applicants.
Wow.
Most of which, I don't even know if they were genuinely applying or if Indeed just threw a bunch of resumes our way. But it got so overwhelming that we would just cancel the ad and stop because we didn't have the capacity to weed it down to, 3 ideals. In regards to the laziness, I do think there's a subjective element to that. It's like, how do you define lazy? That somebody else had made a comment. Is it lazy or efficient? I think it's one of those things where you're the business owner, you're the hiring manager, you're the one that defines it. And once you define it, then you start to identify those characteristics that would be a red flag for your organization.
Hey, it's Dave Kittle. Are you a healthcare business owner or physical therapy practice owner who is looking to figure out your succession plan or exit strategy? We might be able to help. And in fact, we may be interested in acquiring your practice. If you're interested, you can reach out to me. Shoot me an email at dave@conciergepainrelief.com. That's DAVE at CONCIERGE painrelief.com. Or you can call me at any time, 646-781-8884.